Welcome to The Way the World Works, where the trusted team behind the Tuttle Twins books tackles current events, hot topics, and fun ideas to help your family find clarity in a world full of confusion.
Hi, Katie.
Hey, Brittany.
So, Katie, today I'm going to put you in the hot seat, if that's okay. I think
Okay.
perfect, because a lot of our listeners, I think, either homeschool or some might even be thinking about homeschooling. So we're
hmm
big fans of that, obviously, here at Tuttle Twins. But I think it's important to be open about the fact that homeschool can be really, really tough sometimes. I think both on the parents and the kids. So I thought we could talk today about some experiences you might have had where homeschool has gotten so tough, or some ways that you coped with it, and what parents can do if they find themselves really struggling with homeschool, even though they want to do it. So I'm going to kind of turn it over to you to maybe talk about some experiences you had or some survival, steps you can take. So yeah, tell us about your homeschooling experience and some tough times you may have had.
Okay. So, first of all, yeah, that's totally true. Every homeschool family has periods that they go through that are a lot harder than other periods. I think the biggest hardship for homeschool families comes down to comparison. So, a lot of the stress that I've seen homeschool parents having to live with or navigate is they are comparing their kids to other people's kids. They're comparing their homeschool to whatever their kids were doing before, like public education or, a private school or whatever they were doing before, or whatever their friends or family are doing. They have in their heads that there's this way that it's supposed to look. So I think maybe this is actually a broader problem with just human nature. Like we say, comparison is the thief of joy. And it applies very, very much to homeschool because um, you don't have anyone to, slough off the blame to if things aren't going well. That's really scary. Like you can't
Yeah,
blame the
yeah.
schools. You can't blame, the other students. Like it's your circus. They're your monkeys. Like there's, there's nowhere else to put the blame. And so I think a lot of parents really, really stress out feeling like they aren't doing enough, or they go to some homeschool meetup and somebody's kid is just like this math whiz and their kid wants to spend all day, doing art or writing stories or reading. And they think, oh man, I'm really falling behind, even if their homeschool experience is beautiful. Like their kids are thriving and everyone's prospering and happy. But then as soon as you start looking outside at what other people are doing, it's really, really easy to find fault. And that creates a tremendous amount of stress. So, like, number one recommendation for anyone homeschooling is there is no rule book. Like, there is no timeline that your kids are supposed to be doing this or this or this by. There is no such thing as being behind. And I know that especially new parents to homeschool think that I sound like an insane hippie who probably has feral kids. And I mean, I will say, like, when my kids were little, they were pretty feral, but that was like part of the plan. We wanted them to have that time to do that when they were young. But now, I've got we have 7 kids that we homeschooled all the way up to, our daughter when she went to college, she was homeschooled all the way up until we packed her up and sent her off to school. And so now we have just one at home. He's 14. And all of our other kids were homeschooled, all the way to adulthood. So, and they are thriving. I feel like I have to credential myself a little bit. Like all of my kids turned out okay. I promise it works.
I can attest to, I know one of them and she's
Yeah,
lovely. So
right. So number one, I think lose the idea that there are any, benchmarks that you have to be meeting. It's just not true. Anything that your child needs to learn in order to pursue whatever the career path is that they're hoping to pursue, they can learn it when it becomes important. And I know that seems scary. We did it with our daughter when we sent her off to college. There were some things that she didn't know yet. We hadn't covered them, and she had to, learn some things. And she was able to take about 6 months once she decided that she wanted to go to college. Not all of our adult children chose to go to college, but once she decided that that's what she wanted to do, it was important enough to her that she sat down and filled in any gaps that she felt like she had. And she ended up getting scholarships. She got accepted to every college that she applied to. She had a great, broad spectrum of options that she was able to choose from when she wanted to go to school. And she ended up being able to graduate without student loan debt. I mean, it was really kind of this fairy tale experience for her. And we didn't use curriculum with our kids. I think now they call it unschooling.
I
That
was gonna
wasn't,
ask, so you're more of an unschooler.
yeah, we were definitely unschoolers. Although that term always sounded kind of like anti-education to me, and I'm warming to it a little bit because I see the way that it's used now. But we were very child-led. We really gave our kids the opportunity to like focus on the things that they were interested in, the skills that they had, the places where they felt drawn, and we really facilitated their learning in those directions. And it really has served our kids well. All of our adult kids have been able to find careers in fields that they really love. They all are very, very happy in the work that they're doing. And I think a lot of that is because we were able to let go of the idea that we needed to replicate school at home, that there were benchmarks that our kids needed to meet, that there were boxes to check. It's just not true, even if your kids go to college. And so I think if parents can believe just what I've said so far, a lot of the stresses of homeschool disappear. Like, you don't have to replicate school at home. You don't have to, follow anybody else's idea of what's right for your kids. The other thing that I think is important for parents to understand is that it's okay to like take days off. Like, it's okay to just say, man, none of us are feeling this today. Maybe we just need to do something else. Because think about all the other relationships you have with people. It's very uncommon to have a relationship with someone where you can just be in the same room right next to that person day in and day out and never feel like, I love this person so much, but I'm not going to make it if I have to sit next to them and listen to them chew anymore, right? Like that's real and it's fine. Like when you're homeschooling your kids, like it's okay. They probably are sick of you too, and that's also fine. Like it's okay. I just think homeschool parents are just so hard on themselves, and so much of it is like, hey, take a breather. It's okay. Another thing that I think is really important is recognizing what your own strengths and weaknesses are and being like really honest about them. And that's another place where comparison is going to make your life a lot harder than it needs to be. I knew homeschool parents who did such a great job with their kids. They had beautiful homeschool classrooms and they were so organized and they just seemed so put together. They did lots of co-ops and their kids were just like so busy. And I envied that. And then I finally realized that that actually didn't look like what I wanted my life to look like. And it also wasn't very attainable for me just because of the kind of person that I am. And so, even though it was so beautiful and I could admire it, I really had to be honest enough to say, okay, but my skill set that doesn't allow me to, I can't have that. And do I actually want it? Because here's all the stuff behind the scenes that happens. Here's the way that the kids view education when they do it that way. Is that what I want for my family? And the answer for me was no. And I know that the answer for those families when they looked at my probably feral to them children was, I don't want that either. Their house is messy and they have art supplies everywhere all the time. So I think being able to really be honest about what your strengths and weaknesses are, what your kids' strengths and weaknesses are, and then actually building a homeschool life around those things and how successful can we be when we actually pursue a course that, is attainable for us considering our skills and our abilities and our interests. Um, Another thing that my husband and I have helped lots of families enter homeschool. And one of the first things this may be controversial actually for our listeners. I don't really know what the demographic is, but homeschool isn't for everyone. And
Ooh,
that's
I think that's
true.
a really good point to make.
And it's okay. Like, it's okay and especially now, oh my gosh, there are so many amazing options for parents who don't want their kids in public education, can't afford or don't want to pursue private education, but but don't want to homeschool. Like it used to be that you were just stuck. Like if you didn't want to do it, there you were stuck with private school or public school. But there are so many options now. There are co-ops, there are micro schools, there's some really great online curriculum, a lot of child-led curriculum where the parental
That's
involvement
really cool.
is a lot less. Yeah, so I think, it's okay if homeschool isn't for you. And there are still a lot of options where you can take control over the way that your kids are learning, the environment that they're in for, 8 hours a day without having to suddenly become a homeschool family because it's okay and it just isn't for everyone. So I think that's something that is really important.
I'm curious too if you and I have a feeling maybe not so much as other people because it sounds like your family is very open to this. Did you ever face any backlash from family or friends who were like, "Why are you doing this? Like homeschool's so weird." Blah, like your kids aren't going to be socialized or any of that stuff people hear.
Yeah, we socialize our dogs, not our children. But yes,
But you got some
yeah,
backlash from people?
we did. We did have backlash. We had backlash from some family members. We had a lot of backlash from people within like our community, not really the town that we live in, but like our church community, we got a lot of backlash from. There weren't really any other homeschool families. And the families that were there with kids, our kids' age, were super, super public school fanatics. Like they were the kind of parents who lived and breathed their kids' sports, their kids' extracurriculars, their kids' report cards, and, all the honors that kids can get throughout, especially middle school and high school. And our kids really were kind of bullied, honestly. And we faced a lot of times that we had to just choose to turn the other cheek because we believed in what we were doing. And oh well. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's really frustrating as a homeschool parent, especially one who does what I believe is the right thing in saying, okay, well, we're not going to replicate school at home. We're not going to create this environment that's exactly the same as public school, only we're going to do it at home. And they choose a more kind of child-led approach. It's very frustrating when benchmarks aren't important to your family and you have people who, for whatever reason, people do this to homeschoolers. It's so weird. They want to like quiz your kids. Like as soon as people find out that kids are homeschooled, they're like, oh, well, what are you studying about right now? Oh, well, what do you know about this? Oh, well, like little kids, well, what are your ABCs? Well, what math are you doing right now in school? And it's like, why are you doing that? You don't do that when you find out that someone is in public school. Like it's really weird.
Yeah.
I've never understood why people do it, but they do. And um that kind of behavior can actually be kind of hurtful and harmful to homeschool families when it makes kids question that their parents are looking out for their own best interest. I am fiercely protective of those parent-child relationships, and that was probably the thing that frustrated me the most was when, my kids would come home and say, "Oh, like this adult made me question maybe you weren't doing what was right for me." And all of our kids had experiences like that. We had to talk through them, and now in adulthood our kids have all said, I'm so glad I was homeschooled. I'm going to homeschool my kids. It was such the right thing to do. But it does make for some hard things or hard conversations. And there's really nothing you can do about it except be prepared that
Yeah.
you're going to encounter that and you have to just be ready for it. I don't know why people feel the need to do that, but it definitely happens. Um, Another thing, I know we're short on time, but the something that we did with all of our kids, I was always really, really afraid that my kids would grow up and resent us for homeschooling them.
Ooh,
Um,
interesting.
I've seen, books written by kids who were homeschooled that hate their parents now and have these terrible.
Really? Hmm.
Yes, yeah, there's a whole genre of that. And I was, always conscious of that. And so in addition to obviously having open conversation with our kids and really wanting them to always understand why we were doing this and what our path looked like and why it was different, why we chose to do it different than other people did, was once our kids reached high school age, every school year we gave them the option to go to public school. I was so concerned that they would resent missing, homecoming or prom or whatever. And our 4 older girls, all opted to go to public high school for, I think the one that made it the longest was almost 1 semester. And every one of them ended up thinking it was really fun at first. They made friends great. They got to, we had one that was a cheerleader and they did different sports and extracurriculars and all the things, went to prom. But at the end of the day, it really built their own testimony of the path that they were on was the right path with their family. And they all came home and said, I don't ever want to do that again. I don't want to raise my hand to go to the bathroom. I don't like the way that things are taught. It's very much about memorizing facts and not actually educating. Like, they were so converted after being in that situation to the things that we had been telling them and the justifications we had given them for homeschool. So I don't know that every family would want to do that, but that was something that was a real blessing to us and to our kids, to give them that opportunity and let them try it. And they were so quick to be like, nope, I see all the reasons I don't want that.
Well, that is so great. I'm so glad you shared this because I think you brought up a lot of interesting points. And one of them even being that it's not for everybody. Some people will thrive in homeschool, some people won't. And that, again, is why choice is so important in education, just like it is in
Mhm.
everything, is
Mhm.
that one size does not fit all for anything in life. Why would it be different for education? So that's something
Exactly.
to keep in mind. So we will leave it there. Guys, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast and share with your friends. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
You've been listening to The Way the World Works. Make sure your family is subscribed and check out TuttleTwins.com for more awesome content.